All right, time to welcome our market guest then. Deepan Mehra joins in, member of BSE and NSE. Deepan, good morning. Uh, the stocks that are doing best today are some of the PSU banks in particular. From the lows, we've seen quite a bit of rally. In IDBI Bank, of course, this is a different story altogether. But how are you placed on some of these names? IDBI Bank, for example, and would this be a bit of a buy for you right now?
No, I think what we are seeing is a technical bounce in the PSU banks, and they have been underperforming the markets with various challenges that they are dealing with, and somewhat of value buying will be taking place over there. As far as we are concerned, I think we have zero position in all the PSU banks, maybe except for SBI, and IDBI Bank also another bank which is not in our favor considering the past track record and the way the company has performed over the past several quarters and years. Our focus still remains on the private sector banks and the private sector NBFCs, where we do feel that the secular growth story is still pretty much underway, and any relaxation on the monetary policy as well as improvement in the economy will benefit private sector banks as well, because they'll see a jump in the credit growth rates.
Okay. But Dipan, would you then become a buyer for maybe an IDBI bank if in case the government holding structure changes and hence there will be indirect holding by the government, or it would be via government owned entities? Would that make you more confident?
No, not really. I think, see, the main advantage or the main attraction towards the private sector banks is their ability to attract the right type of talent, grow the businesses, bring about innovation within the banking industry, manage the NPAs far better than their counterparts in the public sector arena. And there are a lot of other advantages, track record, corporate governance standards, and many such other softer issues. And till we don't see those softer issues or those kind of qualities coming into say IDBI Bank or the PSU banks, they will remain more or less on a avoid list for us and a lot of other investors. And see, the entire sector, financial services, banking sector is so huge, and there are so many choices that you can play that particular macro theme pretty well with private sector banks or maybe housing finance companies, other NBFCs. I don't really need to invest in the PSU banks or maybe an IDBI or some of the other underperforming private sector banks. So there's so much of choice, and I think investors are better off, having larger holdings in some of the companies which have already, demonstrated their capacity over the past 3-4 years to deliver returns despite rather choppy industry trends.
Okay. Deepan, a couple of stocks which are doing well today, if you track them or if you have any investment thesis on any of these, one is Dish TV, that's doing remarkably well today, up 4%, and the other is CEAT, which has really been in a league of its own.
Well, I think Dish TV, a lot of investors are extremely positive on Dish TV, but we have virtually no holdings or investment in it. And by and large, our view is that the company has disappointed big time, considering what its potential is and what actually it has been able to deliver. And now that there's so much of competition coming in the form of internet media being delivered through the internet and through broadband, I think the business model of the likes of Dish TV or even Den Networks or some of or Hathway for that matter, I think they are under threat. That's at least my view. And it's just that the stock is not really that cheap in terms of valuation. If you look at the price to book or price to earnings or market cap to revenue, it's all more or less on the stretch side. So no doubt, I think from time to time the stock does come under favor and it's a bit of a trading pick. But my advice would be to avoid Dish TV and some of the other counterparts or companies in the similar business. When it comes to tire industry, clearly I think the top line is not growing for these companies for reasons that we all know, and they're benefiting from raw material prices. But how long that benefit will last, is maybe about a quarter or two or so thereafter. And then we'll get into into that period where they may have flat earnings, top line, bottom line. So that picture also is not looking all that attractive at this point of time.
Okay. How have you read SKS Micro not getting a small bank license and it remains an NBFC? Would you still be a buyer into the stock? If not, are you interested in the stock, or you have no positions?
No, well, first a disclosure. It's a company in which we and our clients are invested. It's part of our core holdings as well, and we've been holding it for past several years or so. And The fact that they didn't get the bank license certainly is a disappointment. But the real uncertainty is the reasons for not getting the banking license, which is what the street is asking. And the silence on the part of the management, just adds to the uncertainty. Is it something to do with the internals of the company which investors are missing out, which is why the RBI did not grant a license to SKS Micro, which I mean,
but I'll just add to that.
List of microfinance companies.
I'll just add to that. We in fact had one of the analysts come on air in the morning, and he mentioned that one of the reasons is possibly because they don't have an identifiable promoter. Secondly, that because of the AP crisis, and if you look at the financials of SKS, it's really been a turnaround just in the past fiscal or 2 fiscals in terms of what they were reporting FY14 onwards. Would your confidence be shaken in terms of the fundamentals of SKS going forward?
No, not really. I think we still believe in the story, and they've been able to get out of the AP crisis pretty well, far better than what the street and we had been expecting. And going forward also, I think the prospects are great for the company. I think this is a minor setback, and they should easily be able to get out of it, and maybe a couple of years down the line make themselves eligible, or have set up themselves to convert themselves into a small bank. So I'm still hopeful on the business model and the company.
Okay. What's your call on a name like Motherson Sumi now, Deepan? It's corrected quite a bit, but of course, the rally has been equally strong over the last 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, well, the picture in Motherson Sumi is a bit muddled, and again, as a measure of disclosure, we and our clients own shares of Motherson Sumi. On one hand, I think when you speak to the management and through the various con call and the investor communication, they paint an extremely rosy picture about the prospects of the company, and clearly they have got order books on hand, major expansion plans underway, and certainly they are increasing their market share as far as the customers are concerned, and going into newer and newer products. But then the end customer is certainly facing headwinds. I mean, luxury cars, automobile industry across the globe is being challenged by weaker trends in China, and that also in Europe. So that's what creates the confusion, that on one hand the company is delivering at least on top line, bottom line, and in terms of order book position, but then the end customer is facing challenges. So my sense is to be a bit cautious on this stock at this point of time, and investors with a longer term view, maybe 2-3 years, only those should be the ones who should be looking at Motherson Sumi, because I do expect some kind of negative news flow or bad news from Motherson Sumi over the next 2-3 quarters or so. The kind of growth rates that they have been maintaining, given the external environment, does appear to be a bit challenging. Base effect also will catch up, and keeping on making acquisitions is going to get far more challenging going forward. So although long-term prospects are great and we believe in the story and the business model, it's just that I think the next couple of years may be a bit challenging for the company.
Did you read through the deal with regards to L&T Finance Holdings and Bain now picking up stake worth over 700 crores?
I think it's extremely positive for L&T Finance, and whenever an NBFC or a bank does get capital, the advantage is that immediately it is generally EPS accretive, and I think that raising the resources the way L&T Finance has done, that too from such a marquee investment kind of a company, certainly speaks volumes of their business model. So would look at L&T Finance favorably, and maybe now that the entire infrastructure industry is picking up and we are seeing better quality projects coming up for financing, some of the mistakes of the past are being avoided. One should look at companies like L&T Finance and some of the other infrastructure lenders in a slightly more favorable light. Having said that, again, L&T Finance, we virtually have no investments or no holding over there as a measure of disclosure.
Okay, fair enough. On that note, we're going to wrap up this conversation as well. Deepan, I think you've given most of your disclosures. Any more?